Hello everybody, this is Sean, VE1XOP. I'm going to introduce you to a piece of software that I found online. It's called, well, the software is not called ROS, but the digital mode is called ROS. And this particular piece of software is the only software that's available for ROS. It's free, easy to use. In fact, it's got a couple of features that are very unique compared to any other type of digital software that I've used. It's put out by EA5HVK. This is version 7.4.0. This is the newest version. As you can see, it has these meters that looks like meters used on boilers. It has the traditional waterfall. So we'll get into it and we'll discuss a couple of the different features that you can use and how you should set this up. So first thing you do is you configure it. You configure the operator. So you put in your call sign, your name, your email address, and your location. You can put your locator in here, of course. And you're probably noticing that this information here is changing, and it's monitoring via online. Yeah, it has to be connected to the internet in order to work efficiently. That it's actually picking up on the various stations. And what's really interesting about this, just to jump over this, is that you can actually click on this little terminal and you can send a reply. So I'm looking at, yeah, that blue is really hard to read, and this color reflects to a particular website that we're going to look at. Yeah, 27635. Yeah, I agree. That's not a ham radio frequency. They've plugged in some free band frequencies into this for some odd reason. Maybe it was because this software was available prior. I don't know. I'm not supporting the free band. I'm just showing you what this software can do. So looking at this one here, we've got Uniform November 7 India Oscar. Oh, and he was just making a contact. We just had another station come in here calling CQ. It's IU1CYA on frequency 7048. Now, we can send a reply, and we can reply to this particular user or ham operator. Please QSY. Okay, I'm QRV. Sorry, I'm busy. No decode, meaning if you made the contact, you can't make out what he's saying. And thanks for your time, 73. Bye bye. So this little thing is referred to as I guess as the messaging. It's an internal messaging item. They refer to as internet support. It's more referred to as internal messaging. So you can message this actual call sign with these pre-configured messages. So there's nothing that you can type in here and call them names or say I love you or whatever it is. You basically can only choose from these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. So exit. So there's a station in Norway. Here it actually will give the geographic location. So let's go back to configure. So we have operator, which we would configure. We have macros. And the macros, if it looks confusing, there's nothing for you to do when you install this software other than configuring your operator and setting up your radio and adjusting your sound card. And that is pretty well it. I'm just going to show you features that are here, and if you choose to use them, you can. If you don't want to, don't bother going to them. So this is just a overview of this particular piece of software. So we've got macros. We'll take a look at the first one. I'm not going to go through them all, but I think it's going to make sense. You've got CQ, DE, and you've got, we'll call it a shortcut. It's referred to as my call. If you go over to the legend, my call sign equals this. So these are little variables that they've put in here. The name, QTH, locator. I think it reflects back to when you did your operator. So this information that you put here is then going to be used as the inputs as to these variables. So there's nothing really you have to do unless you're not happy with my name is and the name and my QTH locator, and you want to put something else in there, or if you want to add stuff, you can. It is up to you. But again, this is by default. This is what you see is what you get. They also have some other items in the event that your radio is able to provide that, and if you want to put in your power, and somewhere in here there's going to be something about configuring your power. However, that's pretty well it for macros. Email, You can email a report. Messages received. I haven't used it as of yet. It's an option. I'm not too familiar with what else it can do than the fact of just sending an email of various contacts. Then, of course, you have a thing called spots. Yes. Now you can have, it shows all spots. You can set it to the CB band, which again, I didn't make this software. This is something that's in there, and ham, or you can do auto. I just have it sitting here. I left it as default. And then you have the various items such as EQSL. You can log in. You can basically send an EQSL confirmation to your contacts. Pretty simple. If you have an account with hrdlog.net, the amateur radio web-based logbook, you can upload your logs that you create with this particular piece of software. Hamlog.eu, very focused on the European market, I guess, because of the fact I'm assuming that the creator is in Spain. And what else we have here? Then your rig configuration. So, I mean, we just looked at the operator, the macros, the email, the spots, your various plugins that you can use if you want to. You don't have to use any of these. And then we go into the rig. So, in this case, I have a Yaesu FT Mark V. Rig not found. That's because the rig is not on. If I turn the rig on and I go connect, scanning, now it's online and it's picked up on the radio. If I press OK, the rig is on COM port 3. The PTT is on COM port 4 because I'm using a piece of hardware called Rig Blaster Advantage. You can look it up online. That's what I'm using for all my ham radio digital work. Rig Blaster Advantage. Now, you can use various other types of hardware, but this is what I'm using and it works for me. I agree it's a higher priced item, but it has been flawless for me. I've used it and I love it. So I press OK. So the radio is now connected to the software. And we got a sound card configuration because I have Rig Blaster. This is how I have it set up. And alarms and sounds. This here, I'm not making out what it's saying. And then there's if you have a new call sign, a new DXCC, someone is calling me. You can set that up if you want the alarms to go off. I don't use it. GPS. I don't have a piece of hardware like that plugged in, but if you do. User profiles. I don't use that. It's just myself. It's using the radio. Preferences, you can adjust the resolution per your screen. You can adjust the font size if you want it size 14. I'm guessing that this is the area where it changes, so I'll go back to that and we'll go to preferences. Font size 10, yes, and that's what it did. It basically changed the font size. And what else we have here? We got the color. The color, all this does is just changes the background. There's nothing here you can change per like this really hard to read bad setup. I say it's bad because of accessibility. Black and blue don't mix. We'll all agree to that. So you can do your color background. I've got it set as called background. The waterfall is the green, or you can go grayscale, and depending on what you like. So I'll go back to the green. Languages. Oh, Espanol. Different types of Francais. German, Italian, Dutch, Portuguese. Some of these I'm not too familiar with. Romanian, Slovakian. So it switches over to different languages. Very handy if English is not your first language. It has a beacon. Yes, it has a beacon. And what it does, it sends out your call and your email or whatever information you put in. There's little shortcuts in here, and you can set up your interval. I don't have the beacon running on mine. Next is the frequencies, because the question is, where do you operate ROS, and who are you going to connect with? You're just going to scan the band looking for that weird sound from ROS? No. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the frequencies, and you can choose through the various frequencies that are assigned to ROS Some of them I find conflict, like 14.103. It does conflict with 14.105.51, which is HF packet. So I have a little concern about that. I'm just speaking aloud because I was on HF packet earlier today and noticed that ROS was also only 2.5 kcs away, and it was coming in. There's a lot of activity, though, as you notice here. Again, we got this CB band thing taking place, but 40 meters is really hustling along, and it's kind of neat to watch it. So hypothetically, just before we get back into frequencies, is that you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I want to make a contact with this station. So all you do is just click reply, and you tell them, say, I don't know, QSY to 15 meters, assuming the band is open. Or if you want to go to 40 and tell them that, hey, I'm here, I'd like to chat with you, or make that contact. That's pretty well how that works. So back to the frequency. So you can pretty well choose the frequency. Make sure your antenna, of course, is tuned. It's being used on 2 meters, 6, 10, free band, and the various other bands, right down to 160 meters. But make sure that your antenna is configured. Don't just assume that by pressing one of these, I know, probably saying, Sean, that's a bad idea. I mean, it's pretty common sense. But some people may forget that they may have multiple antennas. This will actually change your frequency on your radio, but it will not change your antenna. So you may have to manually change that. I'm just using that as a precaution. You don't want to be loading up a 15-meter half wave on 160 meters. Wouldn't be a good idea. SCEDS, PSK reporter. This is interesting. We'll close all this other stuff up. So this is a rather interesting piece. Wonder if I can just fit this into the screen properly without... Yeah, let me just adjust that a little bit for everybody. I've got the resolution set up at 720p, and I think that looks better. There we go. And you're probably saying, wow, gray line. Yeah, it's got the gray line deal going on, and this basically is pskreporter.info, and you can choose, of course, the different digital modes, and you can see what's going on. In this case here, it's reporting ROS in the last hour, and you can see here that pretty well no one in North America is really using it. And I'll be honest with you, I've been using it now probably for 2 months. There's myself and another station in Quebec that is using it, and I've seen a couple of freebanders in the U.S. using it, and of course through Mexico. But I've made contacts on ROS right down to South Africa, down into the bottom of South America, and Europe for me is very common because I'm here on the east coast of Canada, and it's a standard map. I mean, you can zoom in, you can see what it's doing. It's rather interesting, to tell you the truth. So as you make contacts, you'll start to populate on this map, and lines will be drawn to where you're making those contacts to. It's a very impressive little piece, and it's just basically, it's right here, PSK reporter, ROS, and it's by default it's set up for ROS. Cluster spot. I haven't used it as of yet, so which cluster is it going into right now? I can't answer that question. I just haven't used it, I'll be honest with you. But it does have the ability to report into a cluster. Internet support. I guess this is the item that is reflective to these little buttons here. We covered that already, so they've gotten 2 spots. And you've got some other options that you can pretty well play with. Show the map here for... let me just adjust that so it fits in the screen nicely. So if you've used this before, saying the computer's no longer receiving Chrome updates, I'm on Windows XP, and that's what I use for all my ham radio stuff. Experiment with the software. I have it hooked up right now to the internet. Like I said, it has to be connected to the internet in order to get these results. It's very internet driven. So let's we'll bypass all these meters, because these meters themselves, they just function the way they are. Of course, they're pretty self-explanatory. Your volume, the CPU usage of your computer, the frame acquisition. My CPU usage is up high because I'm doing a screencast, so it will reflect on that. Everything else, just leave it as is. There's really nothing for you to do here. This area is very important. I learned real fast that you definitely have to do a couple of things here. Okay? I don't use an antenna tuner. If you choose to, you can, and if your radio has it built in, it actually will function with it, supposedly. The alarm I have on. So when you're using this software, if you copy what I have here, you'll be good to go. I have the alarm on. Why? Because if I get someone who's supposedly calling me, as I said, I wasn't using it, but by default I have it on, it basically gives me a nice little beep. I'm not using it per se, it's just there, I just leave it on. Your baud rate for transmit, you got a choice between 16, 8, and 4. Well, I started off by default with 16. I can tell you, it's too fast. You got to go to 8. You're on 8, you'll be good. Just put it there. Decode all. Yes. All. Waterfall on. Yes, I want the waterfall on. And right now I'm not running the beacon. And I usually don't. You've got CQ. You've got the call. You see it popping up, my call. And you see me. My name is Sean. Bye. This is where all these items were we talked about earlier in those macros area. Remember the macros? This macro spot. CQ, call, me, bye. Yeah. Pretty standard. You see the buttons? So these are coordinating to these buttons here. Pretty self-explanatory. And this is the little box that I'm actually writing in. So I'm going to clear that. You can use tune if you want. And if I actually had, if I press this here, it's actually going to, it's going to send a signal. But you're not hearing anything because I don't have the audio hooked up for the for this. So we're going to plug it in so you can actually hear what ROS sounds like. And that's what it sounds like. Now, I'll do it again. I don't have any power going out on the radio. But just to give you an example, that's basically what it sounds like. Maybe you've heard it. I'll stop it. So, just waiting patiently for that to stop. More patience. Alright. So, you're probably saying, okay, so what do I do? It's all hooked up, Sean. I've got everything hooked up. What do I have to do? Well, make sure that your operator is set up, first thing. Make sure you got your rig connected properly. Make sure that your PTT is configured correctly for whichever piece of hardware you're using to key. And you are good to go. And you basically, when you press that CQ, it's basically going to go CQ, DE, VE1XOP in my case, because that's my call. And you can just basically just click there, press that button, and it will basically do it for you. Or, if you're in conversation with someone, and you just want to, you just want to type to them, hey, nice to, if I could type, that would be great too, right? Hey, nice to meet you. Or, hey, nice to meet you, caps lock on, caps lock off. A lot of people choose to use either or. I'm not going to get into which one is the correct one, but from my experience, it's been pretty well flexible. Some people tell me put caps lock on, some people tell me put caps lock off. So that's pretty well it. In theory, you don't even need the radio hooked up with the audio. You can just watch this if you wanted to. Like, there's a lot of activity going on ROS right now on 40 meters, sorry. So if I was down on 40 meters, I could probably break into a conversation. So I'm actually going to go over to 40 meters to see if I can receive any of these people. 7048. So my radio just switched over to 7048. I'm going to basically put the audio back in. There is a bit of a high-pitched sound that comes across with my radio. And I think it's a... I've got a lot of wires running here. Probably someone saying, well, it's a grounding issue. I'll have to take a look at it. I have a feeling it's the Windows XP issue, to be honest with you. So I'll send a message to one of these people, and I'll just basically say that, okay, I'm QRV here, just waiting patiently. I'm not hearing anything as of yet. And to tell you the truth, I hear it way in the background. The band is just not open right now. It's too early in the day. It's 2 o'clock Atlantic time in the afternoon. Traditionally 15 meters is really good, but I'm not seeing anybody on 15 meters, but I'm going to switch over to 15. Adjust the antenna. Switched it over to the 15 meter antenna. And it's pretty quiet right now. I've got nothing going on. Earlier today, the band was actually going. So that concludes my overview of ROS. I hope you didn't find it too boring. I know that the interface on this particular piece of software is probably not the most prettiest, but I'll have to say this, is that it is really ideal for weak signal operation. You don't have to use a lot of power. It's a free piece of software. The fellow who put it together, I've actually emailed him directly. He replies back. Very solid person. And he took the time of actually creating this. It's simple to use. It's not filled with a lot of fluff. And if you download it and you use it, I wish you the best. If you have questions, feel free to contact me. You can follow me on Twitter at VE1XOP, or you can drop me an email, VE1XOP@gmail.com, or leave comments in the actual video on YouTube, or if you spotted it on another social media platform, you can leave your comments there too, and hopefully I'll be able to get back to you. So this is a new mode called ROS. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. I don't add a lot of advertisements or loud music, and I try to keep a pretty good pace. So if you have any comments, please subscribe to the channel, and more videos will be coming. Take care. This is VE1XOP in Nova Scotia, Canada. Bye-bye for now.